Have you ever been there? You're halfway through a terrible movie or deep into a project that's clearly going nowhere, but you just can't stop? Why? Because you've already put in so much time, so much effort, so much money. You feel like you have too much invested to quit. Well, that feeling is real, it's powerful, and it has a name. Let's break it down.
All right, let's start with a little puzzle. This comes from a classic 1985 study. So imagine this. You've bought 2 ski trip tickets. Both are completely non-refundable. The catch? They're for the exact same weekend. You can only go on one.
Okay, so here are your options. Trip A, that one cost you $100. You think it'll be, a pretty good trip. Fine. But trip B, that one only cost you $50, and you're pretty sure it's going to be a great trip. Way more fun. Now, logically, the money is already gone. It's spent. It's what economists call a sunk cost. So you should just pick the trip you'll enjoy more, right?
Well, here's the crazy part. When researchers actually asked people this, that's not what happened. A clear majority, 54% of them, chose the more expensive, less fun trip. Think about that. They literally chose to have a worse time, all because they had paid more money for it.
This weird, totally irrational behavior has a name, and once you hear it, you're going to start seeing it everywhere.
It's called the sunk cost effect, or sometimes the sunk cost fallacy. Basically, it's our brain's tendency to get stuck on what we've already invested, money, time, you name it, and let that dictate what we do next, even if it's a terrible idea. It's the classic throwing good money after bad.
So that ski trip is a neat hypothetical, but does this effect really hold up in the real world? When there are real dollars and major projects on the line? Oh, you bet it does.
To test this, the same researchers set up a really clever experiment. They went to the Ohio University Theater to see if the price people paid for season tickets would actually change how many plays they went to see.
So, they randomly sold the exact same season tickets for 3 different prices, $15 for full price, and then discounted rates of $13 and $8, and the results were crystal clear. The people who paid the full $15, the ones with the highest sunk cost, showed up to way more plays during the first half of the season. The money was already gone for everyone, but that bigger initial price tag made them feel like they had to go to get their money's worth.
Okay, let's up the stakes. A lot. Forget theater tickets. How about a $10 million airplane? Imagine this. In scenario A, your company has already spent $9 million building a new plane. Just then, a competitor releases a better, cheaper one. Do you spend that last $1 million to finish your now inferior project? Now, scenario B. You haven't spent anything yet. A competitor has that better plan on the market. Do you spend $1 million to start building your flawed one from scratch?
When weighed down by that $9 million sunk cost, a whopping 85% of people said yes, finish the plane. They were already in too deep to quit.
But look at this. When it was framed as a fresh decision with no money already spent, only 17% thought it was a good idea. It's the exact same plane, the exact same bad investment. The only thing that changed was the psychological weight of that $9 million.
Okay, so this effect is obviously real and it's powerful. But why? What is going on in our heads that makes us get trapped like this?
Well, the researchers found a huge clue by looking at real-world political debates. Back in 1981, there was this massive project called the Tennessee-Tombigbee Waterway. Listen to what Senator Denton said about stopping it. His argument wasn't about the future benefits, it was about the $1 billion already spent. And he wasn't alone. His colleague, Senator Sasser, said pretty much the exact same thing. The main reason to keep going was that stopping would be a serious waste of the money they'd already poured in.
And that's it. That's the key. According to the researchers, the engine driving this whole thing is a deep, powerful aversion to being wasteful. Stopping feels like admitting you made a mistake. It feels like admitting you wasted that initial investment. And to avoid that awful feeling, we just keep digging, hoping we can somehow justify that first decision.
So if this is just how our brains are wired, are we doomed to keep falling for it? Is there any way to actually get out of this trap?
You'd think that maybe, just maybe, people who study this stuff for a living, like economics students, would be immune, right? I mean, if you know what the trap is called, you should be able to avoid it.
Well, not so fast. The researchers actually checked. They went back to that original ski trip problem and looked at who was answering. And get this, it made absolutely no difference. As you can see, even the students who were literally in a class learning about sunk costs fell for the trap at the exact same rate as everyone else. Just knowing about it isn't enough.
But it's not impossible to beat.
In fact, the study points to one of the most brilliant minds in history who seemed to have this figured out long before psychologists gave it a name: Thomas Edison.
So back in the 1880s, Edison's lamp factory was losing money, but he had a flash of insight. He realized the enormous cost of building the factory. That was in the past. It was a sunk cost. But the additional cost to make just one more lamp, it was tiny. So he started cranking out extra lamps and sold them cheaply over in Europe. And even though the price was low, it was still way more than the tiny extra cost to make them. He completely ignored the sunk cost of the factory, focused only on the future costs and benefits, and turned a failing business into a massive success.
And that's really the question this leaves us with. Take a second and think about it. In your job, in your hobbies, in your relationships, where are you letting the ghosts of yesterday's investments make today's decisions? Where are you sticking with something not because it's the right choice for your future, but just because you feel like you have too much invested to quit?